Going to go ahead and get started. Today is Wednesday, May 24th, 2023. It's 9:03, and we are going to start the Utah Lake Authority meeting. There's a few. Are there any excuse today, Sam? I think a lot of people are online.
We do have several.
If you're not here, you're excused. We'll go ahead and just thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining us online and in our crowd over here. And we will turn the time over to our board member, Curtis Blair, who's going to give us some inspirational thoughts.
Well, it may be maybe more entertainment than inspirational. I'm Curtis Blair. I lead the Chamber of Commerce in Utah Valley. And it is an honor to serve with Mayor Fulmer, who I've come to know and respect as just a genuine all-around good person and pretty darn good leader at that. So it's been fun to work with Sam and Eric. So I thought what we do today are two truths and a lie about Utah Lake. Okay. Number one, a boxing match was once staged at the bottom of the Utah Lake when the lake was almost emptied of water. 1935. That's point number one. Is that true or false? That's one of the truths. That's right. Number two, a June sucker is one of Utah Lake's original 13 native fish, but only 3 of the 13 remain: the June sucker, the Utah sucker, and the Utah chub. That is also true. That is also true. See, Isaac thought I would try to get, 3 or 4 or 4 or 13.
It's an easy five.
That's
an easy
So he was close. Number 3, in spite of repeated requests, there is no official podcast for Utah Lake. That one is false. That's a lie. The first episode aired January 9th of 2020. And the most recent episode was April 29th, just last month, which featured important information about the annual Utah Lake Festival, which will take place a week from this Saturday. Okay.
Thank you. So interesting. I had no idea there was a boxing match out there.
Should we show her? the photo?
Yes.
If you hadn't prepped, we have the photo from the Utah Lake Legacy book on our website. So this is the photo right here of the boxing match occurring.
That is Andy Anderson and Dave Williamson. In fact, following the match, they walked from Pleasant Grove to the other side of the lake. To what would be now Saratoga Springs. It was a mock boxing.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to our chair and board member reports. Is there anything that the board members would like to share with us today? Not today. Anybody online that has anything that you would like to share from the board? Okay, doesn't look like it. So we'll go ahead and move on to our staff and committee reports, and our executive director, Eric Ellis, is going to give us our project updates and then our legislative report.
Sam, you could you slide that projector back so
Yes.
it's bigger than the TV? All right. So just wanted to kind of go through some of the major projects that we're working on right now and give an update on those. This summer, we're planning to do algae remediation in Utah Lake State Park, Linden Marina, and potentially Saratoga Springs. They have the brand new South Marina swim harbor. It's unclear at this point if it's going to be ready to start algae remediation, but we may be working with them on the installation of a bubble curtain, kind of getting it ready for future algae treatments over the summer months. We'll talk about it a little later, but we have assigned some funding towards algae treatments in our 2024 budget, and so that'll kick in July 1st. As far as shoreline restoration work, the work is continuing. This upcoming year is a big year. We're starting to kind of hone in on being more precise in how we treat the lakeshore. And so you'll see here, we've got on our large areas, we continue to do aerial treatments with a helicopter. On the slightly smaller areas, typically those are, along the edges where our helicopters, they have a buffer zone where they can't treat from a helicopter. Those buffers are like structures, trees, things like that, where they have to keep a couple 100 feet away. So we'll go in there with the Marsh Masters and treat with those. And then we also this year finally have for much more precise, so these are for stands of Phragmites that's in the middle of a patch of desirable vegetation. We have a agricultural drone that can spray treatment on a very precise location. And then we have also acquired a multispectral drone that will be flown in the area that is going to be treated in the upcoming week. And that will be able to kind of carefully evaluate where the desirable vegetation is, and where the frag is. And so we're just getting more and more refined as we go over time. We recognize that, and hopefully others can recognize that this project had started as a 9,000, I don't know, it's varied, but right now we're at about 9,900 acres of mapped shoreline that has historically had some amount of Phragmites inundation. And when you're treating at that level with a helicopter, you're bound to treat, you know, the occasional strip of desirable vegetation, even if your helicopter pilot is really good at hitting the on and off of those spray rates. And so it's because of that effort that we have this really awesome biodiversity of native vegetation coming back in. But hopefully we get a pass on occasion when even a strip of that might get treated. It'll be back the following year. The reason why it's there is because of these great treatments. So that's the update on that.
Eric, can I ask,
Yes.
where are we in terms of Phragmite reduction? And take whatever point you want to whatever point we're at.
So from the time we started, Forestry Fire and State Lands did an awesome review of all the data that we have. And it sounds like we're just over 70% reduced.
What a
got-
huge win.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the Great Salt Lake, you guys are tackling thousands and thousands of more acres, and it's seemingly endless.
7,000 acres this year. I think altogether here, there's maybe 12,000 acres that were treated. Do you remember the total number?
The total was just under 10.
I'm just under there. Okay, so just this year we did 7,000 acres.
Yeah, perspective. So how many acres of Phragmites do we anticipate we have roughly?
Probably 2,000 to 3,000.
And so we've gone from just under 10,000 to 2,000 to 3,000 left.
And little by little, so as soon as we get under 2,500 acres, our helicopter pilot won't come anymore. So it's kind of a two-edged sword, but
Yeah.
but we're able, now that we have our Marsh Masters rigged up and we have this drone set up, it'll just become a tighter and tighter solution. And we're also starting to incorporate upstream sources of seeds, so like golf course and up Hobble Creek and things like that. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but
If I make a comment as well.
yeah.
I think another thing to consider is this year will be more important than really any year we've seen in the last, 5 years, because the water levels coming up. It's really hard to treat drought stress Phragmites. So this year, if we can get a grip on those 2,000 or 3,000 acres level, we'll have some really good success. So I think it'll be
One other thing to add is what can we do to broadcast that win out there? I think one of the, it's great that we're doing it, but very few people know, like they've heard about Phragmites, they've heard about invasive species, they've heard about the bark, do we need some op-eds? Do we need some PR, to get that out there? Because I just feel like, the fight that we're having, as much as you guys are fighting the environmental battles, the PR battle leads to resources to fight the environmental battle. And so, just something that we can think through as a board, it would be great to do like some board op-eds that we do all together or something like that, just along those lines. So
Great idea.
podcast.
Yeah. It is an interesting conundrum to be in, because eliminating Phragmites and other invasives is popular. How you do it sometimes is not as popular. And so we're trying to not only reduce how much needs to be done and add in grazing and other, more natural type mechanisms, but it's an interesting one in the public spectrum.
I love the story that you have though, because really you're moving away from the type of elimination or removal that people don't want.
Yeah.
And you're going into the marsh master, the drone, you're doing cows. I mean, there's so many things that you're moving into. So it's kind of an exciting story.
We'll tell them. Jen is taking notes. Right? You'll meet her. Okay, the ULA branding progress. Just wanted to give you an update. This is not the whole package, but the brand architecture and messaging portion of that project has been completed. So we've got headlines and taglines, pillars of the brand platform, summary of the brand platform. The report that they provided was really exciting. They've got some really cool ideas for us, and I think that the board will be excited to see these. This package was delivered to their creative team, or will be this week. And by our next meeting, we will have a creative presentation by BWP, so that you guys can select our final details and we move ahead with it. So a fun process. These guys are really good. They came highly recommended. Lots of other government entities and others use them and have used them. So it's an exciting process. The Lake Authority has been invited to get involved in both the Orem Front Runners area planning effort and the Vineyard area planning effort. Both of these align really well with Utah Lake, as they're in close proximity to the lake, and our plan is to have our shoreline trail have connections, spurs into both of these projects. So the planning is just beginning with Vineyard. We've had a few meetings with Orem. They've just kind of as a reference, I think MAG, or maybe it wasn't MAG, the larger regional planning mountain, what's it called? I forget. I think it's a big, anyway, they had a grant for the cities to do area planning within a half-mile of their front runner station, kind of dream up what could be the best use for those areas. And so it's been really fun and insightful to kind of hear some cool ideas and figure out some ways that these aren't just, only housing or only parking lots, but rather that those are well planned and visioned to be much more than that. So
Real quick, sorry, I just noticed, Mayor Johnson has his hand raised. So I don't know.
Oh.
Mayor, if you had a comment on that.
Yeah, I did. I actually went back to the first slide, and it was interesting to me. I'm sorry, the Russian olives are the next slide. Sorry, second. The second first slide. You have on the first bullet point Russian olives, and I think that's interesting because Russian olives are now part of a wetlands plan. So when they come in and do a delineation, they identify Russian olives as being part of the wetlands. I'm just wondering if anybody understands why, they're recognized as an invasive species, but now also they're recognized as a protected species in wetlands.
I do not have an answer for you, but I can dig into it. There's a chance that what it's more, I'll look into it.
So I might just make, I don't know specifically about the Russian olive, but Phragmites is also an indicator. That's something we try to get rid of. So I think there's indicator species that are invasive, but they're still indicators that wetlands exist. I would argue that Russian olives can move anywhere, but maybe it's an indicator.
Yeah, I just find it interesting because they can hold up projects and and improvement projects, but yet we turn around and we try to get rid of them. So that's all.
Okay, Utah Lake Authority Management Planning. We wanted to make an extra invitation to all of our municipal members to try to have a representative at these meetings. We have two upcoming meetings, the 13th of June and the 19th of July, where we're kind of wrapping up really important segments of that planning process. And over the last few meetings, we've had varying participation by our municipal representatives. And it came about that the request was, hey, let's make sure that, it's not just two of us or three of us, but rather that we get, we have 7 municipalities represented on our board, and if we only have 1 or 2 at these meetings, then it kind of skews the representation. So, but we are getting great participation from other partners, so we appreciate it. Between the last meeting and now, we were able to host the Utah Lake Commission Appreciation Dinner. It was a really fun event. I think that it was appreciated by all of those historic board members and most recent board members, as well as lots of volunteers that have helped tirelessly for years and years to make Utah Lake a wonderful place. So we just wanted to provide a shout out for Dr. Hungerford for helping us organize that activity. It was a beautiful venue up in the top of the business building at UU, and really a success. So thanks all for the help on that. This just recently, we had a request from the June Sucker program to assist with the management, the vegetation management of the lower Hobble Creek. They had some funding kind of slipped through and it wasn't going to work. And we happen to have just enough as an excess of this year's Watershed Restoration Initiative grant to fund that. So we made a few calls and got that dedicated to the June Sucker program. We have been working a lot with them lately, and there's a good chance that we start partnering with them more, especially as we kind of look through our management plan, and fishery management is one of our objectives, that we might be a bigger partner on helping with the carp removal efforts and the fisheries management efforts going forward. So we'll try to keep the June Sucker program folks as included as possible. Down along the bottom here, I just kind of wanted to show a change over time. The photo on the left is when the lower Hobble Creek was first designed. The one in the middle was a couple years later, and you can tell that the Phragmites out in the bay there is just phenomenal. And then the one on the right is just recent, and we've got just an amazing amount of water coming down Hobble Creek. It's flooded almost that entire corridor. But if you look out into the bay, you can see that our Phragmites efforts are working, and that a majority of that is knocked down in the bay and looking a little good. As soon as the muddy water disappears, it'll be green again. It's pretty. Wanted to talk a little bit about the Wacara Way and Powell Slough grazing plan. The grazing plan has been completed and is now being given to Forestry Fire and State Lands and the Bureau of Reclamation for permitting. We're just kind of finalizing the last few details where the cattle will be loaded and unloaded. The fence lines are designed, and I apologize, this map it's the whole project, so it's hard to see detail, but the way the fencing is designed, it allows for the trails to.
Press on the top left, you can laser figure out the first spotlight to show.
And thank you, Bill. The trails are designed to just go between those grazing paddocks. So we shouldn't have a lot of cattle intermixing with people. The only occasion where that might take place is that the corridors where the trails will be situated are wide enough that on occasion we'll have the grazer set up a temporary fence kind of in a section of that trail and have the cattle graze down the sides of it so that we keep that clear. It's also an option to mow it down if that doesn't prove to work, but it's set up so that it can be grazed as well. And then Ben, did you want to talk a little bit about the last point there for us?
Sure. So you all have, I think, heard that there's some other interests in this property. So some of the families that own land adjacent to the property also had, they had quitclaim deeds or they had to pay taxes, various different scenarios for the different families, but as we started to get some of the money and pass the planning and getting the money put off the ground, we really want to make sure we're getting easements from the right people for the trail. Putting the fence line in on the properties that we have permission to put. So title search was performed, it came back and it looked like it was the federal government, it was said to be the BLM, so we met with the BLM and the families that were interested, so they could hopefully resolve the issue and not have it be a legal battle. And it turns out that it wasn't BLM, it ended up being Bureau of Reclamation after BLM kind of dug into their records. BOR has said that they are basically did a forensic analysis that they're basically 100% certain that they own that property. So at this point, I've been working to get one of the families to sit down with the BOR and present their case or their information. So the BOR can either decide if they have information they can recognize or if it's something that they can't. But hopefully it gets a split of closure so we can move forward with confidence that it is indeed BOR, or if it is the families we know who they're working with. We don't invest taxpayer funds into this and find out we're working with the wrong folks. So those meetings are being scheduled now, and hopefully we get some resolution. And we are really dedicated to getting the trail in that area. We'll attest as well, but this is a really important portion of the trail, a major gap. And then also as far as Phragmites goes, this is also a super critical habitat that we really want to see this area. So we're excited to see this move forward. Really want to see these issues resolved. Does that cover it?
Yeah. Any questions from the board member? Okay. Legislative report. So we'll have our budget presented here during the public hearing, but just wanted to let you know, Utah Lake received the $5 million. We talked about that at our March meeting. Those dollars were directed to the Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands to administer. We met recently with some of the executive appropriations folks and the fiscal analyst's office, and one of the legislators at the end of that meeting suggested that they would open a bill file to kind of help the agencies that are given pass-through dollars clear intent on how to administer those, so that apparently there's not a lot of uniformity on how that happens from appropriation to appropriation, and so it makes it a kind of a challenge for agencies like forestry or others that don't have clear direction on what to do. And so hopefully at this upcoming session, we'll have a bill that clarifies that, makes it a much more simple process. But this year, the $5 million forestry has been great to work with. They're in full agreement on how those funds will be spent. And so we're excited to get them out onto the ground this summer. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the uses for that later in the meeting today. All right.
And then we have some new teammates, and Eric, why don't you go ahead and introduce Abby and Jimmy?
Okay, Addie first. Yeah, I'm curious.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Addie Valdez. I've met a few of you, but I haven't met most of you in here yet. So I'm the new conservation biologist with the ULA, and I've been here about 2 months now. It's been great. I've been enjoying every moment of it. It's definitely a learning curve, but meeting everybody and being partnered with such great agencies has really proved to be to my own success. I'm a newer Utah resident. I'm actually originally from Montana. I did a lot of research on like aquatics, turtles, and I grew up on a ranch, so I've been outside my whole life. So I'm definitely very passionate about ecosystems, conservation, and just being out on lakes and everything like that. So it's been great to partner with everybody and learn so much what Utah Lake has to offer here. So kind of using some of my past skills and being able to bring it to the ULA has been something very fun and like a great transition. So some of the newer projects we're kind of working on, just the last few days, I've been out with DWR to do some pike monitoring and also catch June suckers and make sure they're getting tagged so that we can track our spawning this year and be able to track our success for stocking. So that's been really exciting. A huge pike yesterday. I'm not kidding. It was like literally 3 feet long. It was gigantic. And then we're also doing a lot with June Sucker program to move into our park management this year. It's a challenge and we're trying to create a good task force that we're going to be able to find solutions to some of the problems that we have now and be able to just improve our process and hopefully be more successful in the next few years. And then vegetation wise, we actually were able to get some sedges donated to us from a Heber nursery, and they actually spent a few days in Eric's basement. So they did pretty well down there actually, but now we're partnering with UVU. And a couple of professors there to grow them out and hopefully go plant them in the Delta project. So hopefully we're gonna be able to get out and do that here in the next few months as the water kind of tames down a little bit. And then I'm also trying to get an application out with the Department of Ag and Food to bring more habitat, like pollinator programs into play here on the lake. I know we do a great job with shoreline restoration, but they offer some great habitat kits and some seed mixes that are awesome for pollinators, bees, hummingbirds, any kind of butterflies or bats. That's something that's great to improve shoreline restoration as well as native vegetation that we already have, but kind of bringing in that extra element of ecosystem cohesiveness. So hopefully we're gonna be able to get that out there this year, and if not, definitely next year. So we're excited to kind of pair with UDAF, USU, and then the county to be able to kind of bring that to life. And then as well with USU, we're hoping to kind of improve our submerged aquatic vegetation implementation on the lake here. I'm hopefully going up there in the next month to kind of learn about their tanks that they grow out all their submerged aquatic vegetation in, and hopefully we can bring that down somewhere a little bit more locally so that it's more accessible for us to be able to implement onto our lake and be able to kind of bring it to a larger scale hopefully in the next few years. So work in progress, but it's definitely hopeful. I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities for us to kind of improve the resources that we already have, as well as bring extra elements in. So yeah, that's a lot of the projects going on right now. I'm excited to coordinate with more of you guys and be able to figure out more. I'm always open to have conversations with anybody. I love meeting new people, forming a relationship with all you guys. So if you have any ideas or anything like that, I'm totally willing to listen and try my best to give you my aid to make it possible. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Well,
no problem. Yeah, nice meeting you.
do you guys have any questions?
Yeah,
for
any
Abby
questions
or-
for me?
I just, and Eric knows this, because we went and drove around the lake together.
Yes.
Just, I keep, just, it's spring, right, and the
Yes.
runoff and the carp, I think, are they, what's the word, spawning?
They're spawning right now, yes.
So Provo citizens are hating it, right? They just are like, gross, this is getting out of control again. And when I saw them, what did I say to you, Eric? I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Get rid of
what is going on there? But I thought it was interesting, a couple statistics that we found that we're down to 70% of where we were with carp, that we've been able to remove that net that. That's significant for someone who's just on the shoreline driving, looking at the lake, trying to figure out everything and learn as much as I can about it. See that many carp flipping around. It's just so gross. And for Eric to say, easy, Mayor, we're down 70%. So just keep working on those carp.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, right now there's kind of in the kind of decline and they're spawning right now, but that's what you see when they're out kind of in the shallow,
Yeah.
like flipping and everything around. It's
They're huge.
yeah,
Like
if
when you
they're
said you caught a 3-foot pike, I'm like, maybe it was
Yeah.
a carp and she
carp
doesn't
always
know.
come right. Yeah, carp are always seem to always be this size. for some reason, I don't know. But yeah, exactly. We've been about 70% down now. So we've had a great success over the last years of us like actually putting our efforts in. I know our target is to keep it below about 20%. So right now, that's one of our big challenges is kind of bringing down that 30% to stay at 20 or below 20, but kind of getting over that last threshold is kind of what's been holding kind of the program managers like back. We're trying to find a way to get under there while making it sustainable. So we're kind of in the works right now with all our programs, like to try to find the best way to do that.
So one of the things that we're tasked with as a board is choosing our metrics and measuring them year after year after year so that we can show if what we're doing is working. So one of the things that we'll be looking to you for is recommendations on those metrics, particularly within your area of expertise. And on, you know, an evaluation of things as to whether they can or cannot be measured. And so just as you get, you know, familiar with everything, that's one of the things that we as a board will be looking to you for recommendations. So thanks already for all your work.
For sure, yeah. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time.
And will I be doing an update every meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
She can, for sure.
Yeah. if you want.
I think that's so helpful
Yeah.
for us to hear progress and what your focus has been from month to month and where you're at. It's just really helpful for us as board members to stay engaged with exactly what's going on.
For sure, yeah.
And fresh perspective is useful for any conversation, so
Yeah.
that's great.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, and then now we'd like to introduce Jenna Aher.
Hi, my name is Jenna Aher. I'm the new outreach coordinator at ULA. I have been working in like content writing, marketing, social media for pretty much my whole career so far. So I'm excited to get in there and help with the front facing part of the company. So far, I've been helping with updating the website, updating the SEO, and just adding more content, more accessible information on the website and on social media. So I'm excited to keep going with that. I've also been helping with some content for events, flyers, banners, things that kind of help us send the right message to people and brainstorming ideas of how we can generally improve perception of the lake to everyone in the county, because I'm not a Utah native and I definitely heard all the classic lines about Utah Lake when I came here. So really excited to brainstorm ways how we can improve that to existing residents and incoming residents that may have heard those lines as well. So that's all I have. I don't have as many projects going as Debbie's. I've only been here 2 weeks, so a little bit newer, but
Thank you for being here. I have questions. Thank you. All right, Sam has some reports on events and engagement.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And real quick, I do want to give a shout out to Jenna. Yes, she's only been here 2 weeks. But our objective in hiring her on is that I previously was handling all of our communications and all of our events and programs. So she'll now be taking all of that communications work on. So she's doing a great job so far. She's already caught me in a lot of mistakes. So she's been a really big help. So I want to give her a shout out for that. But to report just really quickly on some of our events, a few that have recently occurred and a couple that are upcoming. First, our fourth grade field trips. So this year we had just shy of 1,100 fourth graders across 4 days. We had 11 groups there doing presentations. And it was amazing to see some of the things the kids were learning. We had people from Central Utah Water talking about water conservation. Division of Wildlife Resources had several stations talking about wildlife and wetlands, talking about how to cast a fishing line properly. They had cool little fish for the kids to catch and everything was great. Division of Water Quality was present and so many other great partners. So a thank you to all of the agencies who had somebody there to help educate these kids about Utah Lake, because it makes a difference when they learn this early on, the value that the lake has and the work that's being done down there. So we're really excited to have that. We do plan, this was our second field trip after the pandemic. We put them on hold with the pandemic. So we did our fall field trip last year and spring field trips this year. And we plan to resume that process of fall and spring, spring being in the state park, fall over in Saratoga Springs, so that we can target schools in the various areas. And hopefully, fingers crossed, getting the Nature Center funded in the next couple of years, we plan to expand the field trip offering along with that construction. Another recent event, our Summer Fish Fest. So we started this as a Winter Fish Fest a couple of years ago. This is our second Summer Fish Fest. So we call it the Fish Fest because we don't want people thinking it's a traditional fishing tournament where you show up one day at one spot, you go out, you catch, you bring it in, you weigh it or measure it, and who gets the biggest one wins, right? This is different. It's we like to call it a catch, photo, repeat challenge, where anybody can go out on the lake anywhere on Utah Lake during the 9-day period. And there's rules guiding on what kind of species they need to catch or what, but they take a picture and they can either release it, or if it's allowable to keep it, they can keep it too. That way it caters to both of those crowds. But just a fun, family-friendly way to get out and fish on the lake and learn a little bit more about how awesome the fishing is. That's one thing I often like to tout to people is that you go out to Utah Lake, you're not usually there just because you only want to catch one species. You can catch so many species, whether it's the catfish or the walleye or the white bass, largemouth, smallmouth, green sunfish, bluegill. There's lots of options for people to be able to target and have fun and learn. So a great event. We're really excited to be doing the raffle here later today for all the prizes. So as they take photos and submit them, they get entries into the raffle. And we partner with Al Sporting Goods on that to provide some really fun prizes. Another recent event that we're really excited about is the Paddle with Care event. If any of you were at our Utah Lake Commission Appreciation Dinner, we actually honored Kim Ray there at that event. She's the volunteer who started this event with us last year. So Paddle with Care is about raising awareness around water safety. So the event is a 2.5 mile paddle from Vineyard Beach over to American Fork Marina. And then at the marina, we have some educational booths. This year we had the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, the Utah Drowning and Prevention Coalition, State Parks, Safe Kids Utah County, and our own agency had booths there talking to people about the lake and about resources that are available. The Drowning Prevention Coalition was actually giving life jackets away to anybody who needed one that did not have one that day. So a really cool event, raising awareness around water safety and helping support our life jacket loaner program. So we have 7 stations currently around the lake. And this event is also a fundraiser for that. This year, I'm excited to report we raised $550, which is a little over double what we raised last year's event. And our total number of paddlers registered was more than twice we had registered for last year. So we saw some really great growth in the event. And we're excited to keep that going. Kim and I are already talking about next year and what we can do different. And she wants to set up a carpool service and things to get people back and forth with their paddle boards on the one-way route. And we look forward to potentially moving the route around the lake, using it as a way to feature. So when the Provo River Delta project is done, so maybe 2 years from now, we do the paddle down to the Delta. We'll get to see that new feature of the lake. So a really exciting event. We really enjoyed it. I did want to throw a shout out to Safe Kids Utah County. So that's a subset from the Utah County Health Department. And they have a big focus right now on water safety. So they actually partnered with our group and the Utah Drowning Prevention Coalition and applied for and received a grant for the next 3 years to help us build some additional stations at the lake. So we're going to be pooling our funds. We have plans later this summer to build a station for life jackets at Mill Race. So we're really excited about that as well. A couple of upcoming events I wanted to make sure you all were aware of. Photo contest galleries. So we have our photo contest every year that closes out in September. You all, as are aware, we do print some canvases out to put on display at your offices, but we also print off a round of those canvases that go on a traveling gallery across the county, primarily at the libraries. We have them right now at Spanish Fork. Spanish Fork actually just opened a brand new library just last month. So it's on display there now, and it will have a few other locations across the year that we already have booked. But if any of you are interested and would like to either confirm that you're getting it or would like to request that it comes, feel free to get in touch with me. We'd be happy to have that come to your library or city hall if you'd like to do that. It's just an exciting way for people outside of their normal realm where they're just doing their day-to-day. They suddenly see these beautiful pictures of the lake and the recreation that happens there and the beauty it has to offer. And it helps reinforce those positive perceptions that Representative Branner made such a good point on, that we need people to see that and not just pass that by. So definitely a good opportunity. As Curtis Blair mentioned, the Utah Lake Festival has returned. It will be happening on June 3rd at Utah Lake State Park here in Provo. We're really excited for this. We've got some awesome educational booths. There will be a rock climbing wall. There will be some craft stations for the kids. Provo City Rec is going to come do with some activities for the children. There's going to be 8 food trucks. I always mention the food trucks because some people come just for that. That's an important part. So a lot of great fun events going on. The scavenger hunt will come in later June. This was our pandemic solution for the festival, where we couldn't get a ton of people together to learn about the lake. And people loved it so much they begged us to keep it on. So what it is it's a 9-day period again, and people go out and complete. We have a list of, I think we're at 150 now, different missions they can choose from. And these are things everywhere from, hey, read this blog post about Phragmites treatment and tell us one thing you learned that you found intriguing, to go down to the marina and fit as many people as you can on one paddleboard with life jackets. But how many people can you fit on one paddleboard? To the most challenging one, I think, is trying to visit all 27 public access points in a 24-hour period. I'll give you hints. Driving nonstop as fast as you can, just stopping at each one. It's at least an 8 or 9 hours. It's a long commitment. But they get to complete these challenges. They have a fun time. They learn about the lake, and then we have some prizes for them. I think this year we're giving away a pair of inflatable paddle boards that we got from Al's Sporting Goods. So really exciting event as well. And we'll have information. Will go out to your communications teams that have flyers and posts and the registration links for people to be able to attend these events. And I think that's what I've got. So I think we're good there unless the board has any questions on our events at the lake.
What time is the Utah Lake Festival?
Thank you. I should have said that, Hillary. Thank you. It starts at 10 a.m. So on June 3rd, runs from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Admission to the park is free for anybody who's attending the event. If there's somebody coming in to boat, they'll obviously still have to pay for that. But anybody coming to the festival, there isn't a charge. Great.
Where is that at?
Utah Lake State Park. So right here at the end of Center Street.
So good to see us build on how we interface with the lake. Like it seems like a small thing when you say like $500 and something, but it's so big for bringing people in interfacing. So
For sure.
thanks for all you do. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our consent items. I just need a motion to approve. Yes. So moved by Brady,
Second.
second by Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move into our presentation. Thank you. We'll move into our presentations. We have an Open and Public Meetings Act training.
Is that, sorry, I just want to cover, is that for both consent items? Yeah, I get it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure I moved that correct.
We have an Open and Public Meetings Act training for that Paula, our AAG, will present. And then right after that, we'll have a fiscal training and ULA pocket guide that our executive director will present to us. Thank you, Paula.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paula Ferber, and I'm an Assistant Attorney General representing the Utah Lake Authority. I've been here since January, and so far I've done most of my work with Eric and Sam, but I'm looking forward to working more closely with all of you in the future. I'm here this morning to talk about the Open and Public Meetings Act, found in Utah Code Section 52-4. One of the requirements of the Open and Public Meetings Act is that public bodies are provided with an annual training on the requirements of the Open and Public Meetings Act. I recommend that you take some time and read through it, but today I will give you an overview of the things that are most relevant to the Utah Lake Authority. Feel free to reach out to me if you have other questions. The Open and Public Meeting Act applies to certain meetings of certain state government boards, councils, commissions, and committees, including the Utah Lake Authority. The goal of the Open and Public Meetings Act is that these state agencies who are conducting the people's business do so openly. The law generally requires 4 things. Proper notice of the meetings. This is something that you won't really need to deal with, as it mostly happens behind the scenes. However, if there's something that you wish to discuss at a governing board meeting, you should let Eric know well in advance so it could be included on the posted agenda. And remember that if things aren't included on that agenda, they can't be voted upon. The second thing is providing the ability for the public to attend. The third is transacting business in an open and transparent manner. And the third is keeping good records. So let's break this down a little. The Open and Public Meeting Act defines meetings as the convening of a public body with a quorum present, including a workshop or an executive session, whether in person or by means of electronic communication, for the purpose of discussing, receiving comments from the public about, or acting upon a matter over which the public body or specific body has jurisdiction or advisory power. So this doesn't include chance meetings if you happen to run into someone, gatherings where there is no quorum present, or general meetings where the governing board only discusses administrative matters and takes no action. So let's talk about when the Open and Public Meetings Act applies. The Act applies to all meetings where a public body meets and a quorum is present unless a meeting is closed. A quorum means a simple majority of the membership of the public body unless otherwise defined by applicable law. In the Utah Lake Authority Act, it says a majority of board members constitutes a quorum, and the action of a majority of the quorum constitutes an action of the board. There are limited times when a meeting can be closed to the public, but only for specified reasons. These are enumerated in section 52.4204 and include such things as litigation, certain discussions about real property, and about the health and competence of individuals. In order to close a meeting, a quorum must be present at a properly noticed meeting, and 2/3 of the voting members must vote to close the meeting. The chair must announce the reason the meeting is being closed and the location where the closed meeting will be held, and the name of those who voted to close the meeting. The governing board must keep a recording of the closed meeting and state on the recording when and where it was held, and the name of the people who were present. If discussing the health of an individual or certain security measures, a sworn statement may be provided instead of a recording. But one of the most important things to remember about a closed meeting is that resolutions, rules, contracts, or appointments must be confirmed or passed in an open meeting. So the only vote taken in a closed meeting is to end the closed session. And there are some kind of harsh penalties for closing a meeting that shouldn't be closed. So we have to be really careful when we make that determination, what fits under that section. So that those meetings are properly closed, since the idea is to have everything take place in an open meeting where possible. So how do we comply? When in doubt about the meetings, make sure to talk to Eric or to someone with the Attorney General's office about whether it's a public meeting and whether it needs to be properly noticed and is subject to the Open Public Meetings Act. For example, posted today was the agenda with the statement, public notice is hereby given that the Utah Lake Authority Board will hold a regular board meeting on Wednesday, May 24th at 9 a.m. in the Provo Airport. It has the address, airport boardroom upstairs on the south end. This meeting can also be viewed on our live stream page. We can also consult the section 52.4202 and the electronic meeting policy to ensure any electronic meetings are consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act. If the Utah Lake Authority anticipates that a meeting may be closed, that should be identified on the agenda and follow the rules for closing the meeting and ensure that an appropriate record is kept. We have to include all meetings, all items of business on the agenda, and remember, if it's not on the agenda, you cannot take action on it at the meeting. Keep an audio and video recording of each meeting. Keep written minutes of all open meetings and vote to approve those minutes at the next governing board meeting. Minutes of open meetings should be posted in accordance with section 203. We also need to keep copies of any materials that were introduced during open meetings so that they can be posted as part of the meeting record. And while Robert's rules is not required under the Open and Public Meetings Act, these rules help to ensure a clear record. So the biggest takeaways for us today are the easiest, I'm a little bit behind. The easiest way to violate the Open and Public Meeting Act is by taking action outside a duly called meeting or by closing a meeting that should be kept open. So to avoid this, only take action during a noticed governing board meeting or other noticed meeting. Take votes by roll call whenever holding an electronic meeting. It's a lot easier to keep track if you're on an electronic meeting if you do that by name. Don't conduct any Utah Lake Authority business at social gatherings or during site visits. Keep those social or focused on learning, and wait until you convene at the next governing board meeting to discuss and vote on potential action items. And while public attendance is important and encouraged, the governing board can remove individuals if they disrupt the meeting such that the meeting is seriously compromised. So occasionally questions will come up and arise about the Open and Public Meetings Act, but the concept is pretty simple. Keep these 4 things in mind. Meetings must be properly noticed. The public has to have the ability to attend. Business should be conducted in an open and transparent manner, and good records must be kept. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me or to Eric, and we can work through them together and make sure that we remain in compliance. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Any questions for Paula? Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just a couple quick things. So, we have on here fiscal training. I wanted to just bring up how the Utah Lake Authority responds to or reports fiscal items. There's actually kind of a long list. When Representative Grammer created the Utah Lake Authority, he did not give us any free passes, and so here's the description. So we report to the ULA board for monthly expenditures and annual reports. Once a year, we report to the Executive Appropriations Committee with an annual progress report, which includes financial information. We report to the State Auditor's Office with our annual budget. And then at the end of the year, we complete a self-evaluation report, a large financial survey, a trial balance, a third-party audit report, a fraud risk report, and a financial certification. We also report quarterly to the Transparency Office, the State Transparency Office, and that records our revenue and expenses as well as our salary information. We also report to the board with our annual budget. We report to the board, county auditor, state tax commission, and the state auditor. So just wanted to clarify that we do a lot of reports and we try to be as transparent as possible with all things financial. That fraud risk assessment is a good annual reminder of items that we can do to kind of clean up our separation of duties and things like that, but it is a pretty thorough process to keep us fraud averse. So just wanted to point that out. Included in your packets today is the pocket guide of the Utah Lake Authority. We wanted to make sure you had this. There may be a couple minor editorial issues. We called it the Lake Commission on the first page. A little bit embarrassing, but next year it will be error-free, I promise. The most important part though is that it gives you some great information. It gives you our current vision statement, mission statement, talks a little bit about kind of our major projects and describes what those are, so you can kind of feel like you're up to speed on what those major efforts that are underway by the Lake Authority. On page, the middle of the book in the centerfold, there is a training section, and if you could make sure that, or we do the open public meetings training as Paula just did for us, but the state auditor board member training, this is for each board member to do once during their tenure of appointment. And so if you could, we'll send out an electronic copy of this, so you don't have to try to transcribe that URL. But if you could all make sure that you have completed that training, it provides really good information on how to be a responsible and good steward as a board member of the actions that staff take. So great training to have, and we would ask that everybody does that at least once during your 2 or 4 year period. And then it gives our agenda or our meeting schedule for the rest of the year, talks about the goals of the Lake Authority, gives contact information for all of our board members, and then answers some frequently asked questions. You know, how you get an item on the agenda, or how you can help out staff on doing things on the lake, things like that. So I'd encourage you to review that. We've got some QR codes on the back for quick access to our bylaws, our management plan, and our most recent annual report. And otherwise, just good contact for myself and for our social media accounts as well, so we can follow those.
Any questions? All right, we will go ahead and move into our public hearing. This is to review and approve the FY 24 proposed annual budget. Any motion to go into a public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mayor Lucy. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Curtis. All in favor?
Aye.
We're now in a public hearing. Are you here to be?
Yeah.
doing this?
Okay, so this is our first operating year with a full budget, and so It really closely resembles last year's operating budget, even though we knew that last year we only had a few months on it, so we knew we were gonna go through the whole budget. Our funds are not lapsing, so we're incorporating anything from last year into this upcoming year's budget. As I go down the list. Our accounting services, we bumped that a little bit just in anticipation of having to do 2 reports this year. One for the Lake Commission wrapping up and one for us. And then we were able to put a little bit more funding into promotion and event sponsorship as we're hoping to amp up those programs. And then we have a portion that goes into our capital projects fund. Just as an automatic transfer at the beginning of the year, because we have some really big projects planned or envisioned for our capital projects. So if you go to page 2, we include, if you go to the far right column, this is FY24. We include that contribution from our general fund to the capital projects. Then we have our beginning balance.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can we see this online? Do we have any projections of it?
I have, yes, the digital.
Everyone does, or our board members online do have.
Our board members have it. I was just wondering for the public if they could see it.
I'm happy to grab it really quick. Thanks, Jim. That's. One second. Here we are.
Thank you so much.
So this. You're on the capital projects page now, right? Let me just get a screen share on Zoom really quick. Okay, there you go. Now it's on.
Okay. So the planned expenditures from our capital projects this year, we have 750,000 for access enhancements. This will be matched or leveraged with the one-time appropriation that Forestry Fire and State Lands will be administering. We also have 378. This is a random odd number. It's not an exact one. It's just what we had left over for algae treatment, because we know that it's kind of, you get what you pay for. So we're hoping to extend these algae treatments in our marinas as long as we can into the summer so that they're usable for the full recreation year if possible. So we put everything extra we could into that. And then wetland and conservation mitigation, 140,000. That is the Lake Authority's portion that matches Watershed Restoration Initiative and UDAF's invasive species mitigation program. So the full project for shoreline restoration this year is just under 500,000 for Phragmites, tamaris, and other invasive removal. This 140,000 is our contribution to that, which is much more substantial than we've ever contributed before. It's almost been entirely grant funded in the past. The watershed folks asked us to try to be kind of a even split on this going forward. So that's what that represents. And that's it.
Hey,
Yes.
If I may, so just to clarify, the 355 ongoing is, my question is, that is ongoing.
So 355 is
The general fund appropriation that is ongoing. It's more a statement than a question. It's not just 1 year.
correct. So the full amount is ongoing. So 1.49 million is an ongoing appropriation. This is how we have chosen to break it down so that a portion of that annual appropriation, ongoing appropriation, goes directly into capital projects, so we can fund those. And that might change every year, but not the appropriation, but rather how we allocate it.
And the reason I'm stating this is simply for planning purposes. We know that we have ongoing funding, so these are things that we not one and done. So we are able to get long-term contracts, we're able to work with partners, we're able to establish this longer-term plan. And I think that's great, but it's reflected here in our budget. And build those long-term strategies. Just wanted to point that out for everyone.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, are there any comments or questions from the public? on the budget? No, any comments or questions on the budget online, from the public? No? If not, I would like a motion to go out of public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mayor, and a second by our Commissioner, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, any questions or discussion from the board? No, then I need a motion, to approve. Okay, a motion to approve the proposed annual budget by Mayor Petrusi,
Second.
a second by Curtis Blair, and then we'll do this by roll call. So we'll start here and then we'll go online. So we'll start with you, Curtis, just
Just
say aye and say your name.
I, Curtis Blair.
Don't start. Hi, Hillary Underwood. Hi, Kevin Dalton.
Aye, Julie Palmer.
I'm Mayor Petrusi.
Yes, pretty right. Yes, Tom second.
Awesome. Yeah, I like that. Like keeping us on our toes.
Online, we have Mark Johnson. It looks like Chris Carnett drop off, so it's just Mark Johnson online.
Okay,
I, Mark Johnson.
thank you, Mark. All right, it looks like that passed. Eddie, you want to post? I think we got everybody. Okay, that carried. We will now move into a closed session. We're going to hear a small training on how to make this motion by our Assistant Attorney General Paula. And then I will read that motion and we can move into that next session.
As we just discussed, pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, there are certain permitted reasons for closing a meeting to the public. These reasons are enumerated in Utah Code Section 524205. And among those permitted reasons is for conducting a strategy session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of water right or water shares, or to discuss a proposed development agreement, proposed project proposal, or financial proposal related to the development of land owned by the state. If a public discussion would disclose the appraisal or estimated value of the property under consideration, or would prevent the public body from completing the transaction on the best possible terms. In order to close the meeting, we would need a quorum present, which we have in an open meeting that has been properly noticed, and a vote of 2/3 of the members of the public body present at the open meeting to vote to approve closing the meeting.
Okay. Just logistically, when we go into this closed meeting, we're going to send the public out.
Yes, just right after.
Online, we have one board member, so will we,
So we'll turn the recording off and we'll record here in person.
and we'll
Record.
call him.
And then anybody that's in attendance, can either remove themselves or I can remove them. If they'd like to be notified, they can go into the waiting room. And then as soon as we return to open session, I can hit admit all. Or any of the
Okay, then I will go ahead and read the motion and then I just need someone to accept it and then I'll need a second. So, do we have a motion to close the meeting to discuss section D, strategy session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of water right or water shares, or to discuss a proposed development agreement, project proposal, or financial proposal related to the development of land owned by the state? The public discussion would, 1, disclose the appraisal or estimated value of the property under consideration, or 2, prevent the public body from completing the transaction on the best possible terms. I need that motion. So moved by the commissioner,
Seconded.
second by Cameron. All in favor? Aye. I'm now going into a closed session.
Anyone who's listening online that's not a board member, so Mark Johnson be the only one, if you could remove yourself from the meeting and then try to join the link again, it will put you in the waiting room. And then I will accept everyone once we're prepared to reopen the meeting. You'll give me just a minute. Just right out on the camera, you're fine.
If you'd like, you could roll a chair out there so that you can.
By all means.
I could roll a chair.
Just curious, good job on the office training.
as well is generally.
Necessary.
So just confirming, I still have two people on Zoom, one just listed as iPhone 2, and the other I've got a phone number 15109081825. Are either of those individuals board members of the Utah Lake Authority? Give you a second to respond, otherwise I'll remove you from the meeting. Okay, I will do the removal. As I stated before, feel free to click on the meeting link again to be added to the waiting room to wait to rejoin again. Please, I don't want to report them. Just remove them.
Just shut it down.
Okay, and then let me just hit the stop recording.
You go ahead. Sam, you're letting anyone back in the waiting room?
Yeah, we only had two, well, I guess one that was in waiting that's entered in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll go ahead and resume our Lake Authority meeting. It's 10:39 and we're moving into our action items. 8.1 is the board resolution and the creation, monitoring and maintenance of Utah Lake Wetland Restoration Site, and our executive director will explain this.
Okay, so we have a resolution before us that is taking the responsibility as a board to see the wetland restoration site through to completion. There's plenty of effort and involvement in that. The Utah Lake Authority has a grant to develop this wetland site, and then it will require work in future years to make sure that it's performing and responding well to the vegetation efforts. And this resolution asserts our plans to see that through to completion.
Right, are there any questions or comments about this resolution?
I would simply state that I believe as a board, this is appropriate action to take. That wetland preservation falls within our core mission. And we'll feel my support for the support. So I encourage and support this resolution.
Great, would you like to make a motion?
I would move that we adopt the resolution as presented.
All right, Cameron, you're moving the resolution as presented with the first, second by Brady Grammer. And we'll go ahead and do this by roll call. State your name and whether you're in favor or opposed.
Ben Steierman, yes.
Hillary Hungerford, yes.
Cameron Dalton, yes.
Julie Fulmer, yes.
Isaac Maxman, yes.
Brady Grammer, yes.
Tom Sackridge, yes.
Online, we have
Mark Johnson, yes.
Curtis Blair, yes.
Hey, we're all in favor and that has passed. We'll move to 8.2, discussion and approve resolution assigning the ULA chair the duty of annually reviewing the performance and recommending compensation rate for the executive director to the board. Our assistant attorney general will present this item.
So as we were looking at the statute and the bylaws of the Utah Lake Authority, the statute establishes that the Utah Lake Authority establishes the executive director's salary, and the bylaws say that the chair does an annual performance evaluation. There's been a market analysis done that will be coming back to the Utah Lake Authority. And so we were trying to determine a policy of how this was going to happen, that the executive director's salary would be reviewed for possible increases. We looked at the Inland Port Authority, and in that case, the chair is the one who determines the salary of the executive director. So we thought for efficiency, since the chair is the one who does the performance evaluation, it would be most efficient for the chair to review the performance evaluation, the market analysis, and come up with a recommendation so that that could then be presented to the board for discussion and approval of any salary increases for the executive director. So this resolution just delegates to the chair. The bylaws say that the board can delegate to the chair other duties as assigned, and this resolution would delegate to the chair the authority to review the market analysis, to review the performance evaluation, and come up with a recommendation of what that salary increase might be.
Okay, are there any questions for Paula? Any thoughts or comments on the process?
Chair, just a question.
Yeah.
Well, can you clarify, my assumption is that any other authority staff compensation would fall to the executive director.
The executive director, right, so
The
this
board
is
is
just
simply
for,
addressing the executive director.
yes, so he's not reviewing his own.
Correct.
Yeah, so just the executive director, and then Eric is responsible for reviewing the salaries of all of the other staff. Yes.
Did you find out any other ways that boards handle this? Was this the only way we found?
That was the only one. The Utah Lake Authority is kind of in an interesting position because most other organizations, the HRM handles all of the human resources and the salaries. And because of the way that this is set up as a public entity, it's just a little bit different. So that's why we were looking to in the court.
So I would just comment, I mean, in the port, MIDA, one of the mountains are all other, they're all other state, probably governmental entities, similar situations. I'm serving with those groups, I can say that this is how they also address them, not just the utility. So typically the board addresses salary and compensation for the executive director. And everything else, the executive director handles. So with that said, I think it is a good motion. Anything else? You ready for a motion?
I do think one of the things that I want to make sure that we don't isn't lost is, that Eric moved over from the commission to the authority, and there may be some hesitancy to, or a desire to treat him as if he was the executive director of the commission. It's a very different position. The reporting requirements and the job requirements are quite a bit. I mean, we built a fairly robust thing around this that puts a lot of pressure on the executive director and will require a whole lot more management acumen than commission position required. And so I just, I fully expect that we'll treat Eric fairly for what we're asking to do. And I support this motion. And I look forward to the recommendation.
Okay, we are ready for that motion.
I move, well, unless.
Go ahead.
I move that we adopt resolution number 2023-2 regarding compensation for the executive director. Report.
Okay, a motion for approval by Cameron, and I need a second. Second by Commissioner Sarkovich. Okay, and then we'll do this also by roll.
That's fair. Yes.
Hillary Hunter Ford, yes.
Cameron Dalton, yes.
Julie Palmer, yes.
Isaac Paxton, yes.
Brittany Brammer, yes.
Tom Sackett, yes.
Mark Johnson, yes.
Curtis Blair, yes.
All right, it is passed. With that, we'll move on to our public comments. There was a public comment that I wanted to read. Let's see. Says, this is from Mr. Jake Holdaway. It says, ULA board members, to be clear, the Keith Holdaway family, including the Pat Bug family, will not be supporting the Waltero Way project in its current form. We have joined with the same attorney to fight this. DOR might feel confident in their case, but they are not federal judges. If the Lake Authority continues to remove our families, this will lead to a very long federal court case that will take years and decades.
I would rather just speak to the group if that's okay.
Hold on 1 second. Are there any, well, actually, if you want to add to it, I don't mind. You have 2 minutes. Feel free. Go ahead.
You know, Julie, the reason why we're not speaking with you guys right now is because you haven't divulged the WIFIA loan documents that we asked for. It's very easy. When you guys started working with the islands, we said, why is a road going through our property? And then for 9 months, you totally claimed that you were not involved. When the federal government finally made those documents public, you then fought the grammar release of those 91 pages. I don't understand why those are not being made public. I don't know why you claimed that there wasn't a road. Eric, you too met with us and told us that there was no roads going through these wetlands. The WIFIA loan documents show that you were there during that road planning. All we did is ask for that, and then you've totally removed our family from our properties. We're very confident in our 100-year-old case. It's going to be, we don't even need to win. All we have to do is throw this in court for another decade. We already know how backlogged that is. We don't want to do that. But if the Lake Authority was set up for us to vote, this will give us another election to put this before the people and find that out. Julie, this is all we asked for was those documents. And those 90, you have the right to make those as protected and say, oh, no one gets access to those. But we can put our foot down and say, those should be made public. And I know it's really hard to fight a government entity, but we have to stand up. We are citizens and we have full access to that. And when someone isn't being truthful, and I don't want this to be a mean thing, this isn't personal, but we should have access to those.
Thank you for your comment. I'll just respond to that just for the board. I feel like there's probably a misunderstanding here. Those things are public in case the board needs any of that information from bringing the chat to me. All right, are there any other comments from the public? Oh, please come up, state your name.
And if you just make sure to face towards.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Hi, I'm Kay Nelson. I'm a member of Concern Utah Valley and also the Utah Lake Conservation Coalition. And this is such a hopeful meeting to hear the different things that are going on. We connected with Jenna and Addie already outside, and we have a way to get the message out to the people who we have on our email list and on our social media sites. So we would love to have a pipeline of information, all the good things that are happening for Utah Lake, because people need to be educated. I'm tired of trying to dispel misconceptions about how nasty the lake is. And all the time, it's just a constant battle. So thank you so much for all you're doing. We're so hopeful. One thing that's on our radar is the inland port that is proposed in Spanish Fork, and we're concerned about that. We've talked to lots of people. We have a town hall planned for June 8th in the Spanish Fork Library. We'd love for you to come. Someone from the inland port is going to speak that night, as well as a biologist and a few other people who have knowledge about what would happen if this inland port went in. So that's a big concern. And I don't know how much play you have in that as the Utah Lake Authority, but we feel like that's a great thing to have on the radar. Because it could really destroy the south end of the lake with the wetlands and the views and the pollution and the things that could come from that. So just wanted to make sure that that's something you're aware of. And again, thank you. You're doing such a great job.
I have a question about mitigation. And a couple of questions. Where's the wetland?
State your name.
John Benyon. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Where is the wetlands restoration area going to be, or is that still in discussion?
Still in discussion.
Okay. At the last meeting, we talked this meeting about the pathway, the trail around the lake, and about mitigation and restoration. My question is more about mitigation than restoration. When I spoke to the contractor who was helping with the pathway, and I don't remember his name. he said that this might affect the policy so that there's plan to buy land off. I interpreted that as being plan to buy land off the lake to mitigate for the downgrading policy. He said they needed to downgrade it to build a pathway through. I may have completely misunderstood him. But what is the purpose of purchasing mitigation land elsewhere off the lake? Does that question make sense?
I can respond real quick.
Good.
Wetland mitigation just needs to take place within the same Cuck watershed, and so they're not overly large. So if you're going to have any impact on a wetland in one location, you can either offset that at that location if there's room to do so, or you can set aside a piece of property in that same region that can offset the impacts, albeit those small for a trail. There will be some amount that needs to be offset.
I understand that basic principle. I get my statement, my comment then is that I would hope that when there are existing wetlands around the lake, that the utmost would be done to protect them and keep them as wetlands rather than simply establishing wetlands elsewhere. That's my main comment.
I would just add one other thing.
Yeah.
The wetlands within the Wacara Way site, for example, are not intended to be downgraded. They are intended to be enhanced and a focal point for people to see what good restoration looks like. And so they will be likely some of the nicest, second to the forestry part of state lands, except at the north end of the lake. One of the nicest wetlands that we have on the edge of each other.
That completely answers my question, and that is happy news. Thank you very much.
Great. Any other questions? Sam, did you see anything on it?
Have anything else?
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and close the public comments, and I just need, and right before I say this, just as a reminder, as you leave the airport, I will come and get this code to check out from the gate, and we'll work on that together. In the meantime, we need a motion to adjourn. All right, I'll make the motion. I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.